What's up, everybody? Hope everybody's doing great. We're doing here a show, a live show. It's been a while. It's been almost a month since I've done a live show. I've done a couple Twitter talk spaces. Been on the Twitter machine, but now I'm back to doing the live show, and I feel like it was very interesting or very special to do the live show after a month. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about both LAFC and LA Galaxy. Lots of news going out this week with a lot of players, a lot of different moves going on. But before we get into that, let me introduce my main man. We got Andy Diosa. Andy, how you doing?
What's going on, Gio? It's a pleasure to be back. Like you said, it's been a while on the platform, but it's exciting. There's a lot going on off season, but it never really stops here.
No, it definitely doesn't. But before we get into that, man, what's up, man? What you been up to during this break? We know it's been a break for us, obviously covering the LA teams out here. But like, what you been up to? Did you watch that? I'm assuming you watched the MLS Cup. What you think of all that?
Yeah, man, just been keeping an eye on things as things progress. All over the place. I got to watch MLS Cup. It was pretty cool to see New York win. Crazy game to see Portland score late, and then New York obviously gets it in penalties. They proved that they could do it, which is surprising because I had this talk with somebody like New York has had actual like soccer legends on their teams in the past few years, and for this New York City FC team to be the one that wins the cup shows a lot, man. It shows a lot for expansion clubs. It shows a lot for MLS in general and ways to win. So I think it definitely is a good testament to how the league is, and it's for them to be able to do it somewhere in Portland, like the weather that day was terrible, and just it's not an easy place to play at. It's a big deal. So yeah, congrats to New York City FC, man. I definitely didn't expect that to happen when the playoffs started, but they were good the whole way, so they deserved it for sure.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I definitely thought Portland was going to be playing a lot better than they did, but unfortunately they didn't. And NYCFC ended up winning. But I will say, look, the game for the most part it was all NYCFC to the last minute of the game. Then finally, Portland finally did something and made it exciting. It was the last minute, and that's MLS for you. You just got to watch it, and then obviously it came to the penalties. NYCFC ended up taking it. So overall, I would say it was a good final. It was a good final. It was a little boring at times, but it was a good final. It did have the emotion in the final minute of the game, and they gave us another 30 minutes, and then it went to penalties. But yeah, no, first time NYCFC has won the championship. I think that's big. And also a lot. They were calling it the Bing Bong. I don't know if you've seen that thing, the side talk. I'm assuming everybody that knows about the side talk interviews and stuff. Joe Byron. All the different things, man. So it was like. It was cool to like they added a little bit of the culture of what's going on on social media, but it's an exciting time for them, for NYCFC. They don't even got a regular soccer stadium. They don't got a regular football stadium. They're playing in the Yankee Stadium, which is crazy. And it goes to show it doesn't really matter what your home is as long as you got some ballers and you can come out on top. So hats off to NYCFC, man, because they definitely deserved it. And obviously, I know people will talk about Portland Timbers goal. That goal should not have counted when you look back at the replay and everything, but it's just the way it happened. So it gave us 30 more minutes, but NYC definitely deserved to win. They were definitely the better team. But I gotta ask you, man, you wearing the Revs jersey, you're wearing the New England. What happened? Are you done with Austin FC or what happened?
Long live the crayon flag, man. This is officially a throwback right here. Throwback sports memorabilia. Man, the Revs, they ran into a hot team that ended up going to win a championship. I think everybody expected a lot more from that team the way they played all season, but it is what it is, man. Momentum is a hell of a thing, and when you have a playoff system and when you have that much time off, you want to believe that that's not the reason behind them losing, but it definitely plays a role in it. But regardless, it was a historical season. We've talked about it before. It's really 2019 LAFC all over again in certain ways, with the Supporter Shield, with the MVP, with Coach of the Year. There's a lot of similarities there, setting the record and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you know how MLS is, and that conversation of Supporter Shield versus MLS Cup will always be a thing, regardless of which one you decide is more important. We know which one holds the most weight, and they weren't able to do it, so it's tough for them. But they're on the right trajectory, I'll say, for hopefully sustaining a little bit of success over the years.
Yeah, no, I got you. But you didn't answer my question. Are you going back to the Revs or what? What happened?
Hey man, life, lifelong, Austin FC fan. Lifelong since I was a young boy. But I always got to rep the home teams. You see me out here, man.
I see. I'm just making look. I'm looking out for the Austin FC fans, the loyal fans that follow you as well. I was just
Austin,
concerned. I was
Austin
concerned
FC
for
knows where
them.
my heart's at, man.
I see. You're a Texas man and you're a Boston man. I see you. I see
You
you.
already
Hey,
know.
there's nothing wrong with that. On to the note of that, I think we should just go right into that. The Rebs, your Rebs, got they got Sebastian Lleget, which is big, right? Especially for if we look a little bit more into the transaction and everything. But I want to just share this. Obviously, the big news today was official. It was reported earlier this week. Sebastian Lleget is moving on to the East Coast, moving on to Boston. And here's his quote. He says, he tweeted this out. He says, LA, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for my teammates throughout the years. Thank you for challenging me. Obviously, he goes on to say a lot more. There's photos right there with him and Zlatan, Chicharito, Jonathan Dos Santos, who's also no longer with the LA Galaxy, another legend. All these photos you see who legit got to play. There's Gio, and you get to see all these different photos. Legit, he's been around a lot of talented players and world class players like Zlatan, right? Um, the only thing, and you'll talk. I think you could talk a little bit more into this because you're in the press call. The one thing that I think I stood out, I think I read it from you. He wanted to win. He hadn't won no silverware. If we're going to be honest with the LA Galaxy, and that's pretty much honest. And I know he went along the lines that he wants to win that silverware. But first, let me get your thoughts about Lleget moving out with the Revs and all that, and obviously, what were your initial thoughts on that?
I was pretty surprised, and I know that some people on Twitter were kind of like all over the fact that it was presented as a blockbuster deal. But to me, the term blockbuster really kind of does define how a player of that caliber, a player of that stature, moving to a team that just came off of its best season, one of the best MLS seasons ever. It's pretty much a big deal considering that the Galaxy also had just parted ways with Jonathan Dos Santos, like you mentioned. It was surprising to me because I feel like Lleget in certain capacities could definitely have helped the Galaxy move forward for whatever ways that may be, but maybe that just wasn't the plan for Greg Vanney and everybody else. So for sure, it was surprising for me to see Lleget move on, but obviously a very good get for New England in my opinion, for sure. Just what he brings on and off the field to me is important. There's a lot of I've been having this conversation on Twitter for the past few days when it was initially reported that he was going to go. There's always been like a weird narrative around the player like Lleget for some reason, whether it's Galaxy fans, whether it's fans of the U.S. men's national team. And listen, I mean, I know you could judge players easily based on a lot of things, and there's always the whole he doesn't pass the ball forward type thing. But to me, I think that he had been in a really good form. I don't want to say he has been in a really good form pretty much with the U.S. men's national team. And I think that you kind of saw him take a lot of strides with being in the national team. And I think a player like that getting those strides, obviously, when you're not able to kind of translate that to your club team, it's annoying. It's annoying for the fans. It's annoying for the players. It's annoying for anybody involved. And I think that his comments saying like he wants to win, I think that's what that was based on. Because if he's coming off a Gold Cup, he's coming off all this USMNT success this past year. And like I said, his form had been good enough that he's playing with Christian Pulisic. There's people saying that he shouldn't be on the World Cup roster if they do make it. But I'm like, he's played with the A team. He's played with the B team. He's played with the so-called C team. And like, he's been able to kind of adapt to, what Greg Berhalter wants there. And once again, I just don't think that that was so much the case in LA. Now we're talking about, like you said, he's been around for a lot of years. That's they're all individual bases, but in the overall arching thing, I think it's going to end up being a big loss for the Galaxy. We don't know how they're going to move forward, so that that's still to be seen. But you're thinking about taking Jonah and Lleget off of that team. Especially Gio. You know how we cover the Galaxy all year, how much they talked about this year the locker room was different. This year the vibes were different. It's like those are two players that bring that locker room atmosphere. I mean, out of anybody on the Galaxy, you know that those are two guys that are going to, have that mentality that is really going to help the team in the locker room. Is going to help that. It's going to help that, I guess, vibe like they called it. Because let's not forget when they had that terrible year and nobody wanted to speak to media when Chicharito was MIA. Sebastian Lleget was the player that was speaking after every game if they were getting blown out, this and that. So overall, I think it'd be a big loss for the Galaxy. I think fans are going to realize that they're going to miss him a lot more than they probably do right now. And I think for New England, is definitely a good acquisition.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I think I'll just add to that. I was surprised. I was surprised, but at the same time, um, not really because with legit, I just feel like he wasn't able to find his role with the Galaxy because sometimes he played like right wing, he played center attacking midfielder. I'm starting to see some of the comments there. So he was more of a utility player, but I know when we asked him in the press calls, when I asked him straight up, I was like, "Hey, where do you feel playing? As the number 10, as center attacking midfield, that's where he felt comfortable." But at times it was Efrain, there was Sasha, it was a mixture, Victor Vasquez and stuff. So it was like there was definitely a mixture of players, and I think when I look at this deal, I think it's a good deal for Legit. I think Legit, he goes back to Bruce Arena. He goes back to a coach he's familiar, a coach that initially believed in him. For the Galaxy, when I initially looked at the deal, I was like, I saw the big number as 1.3. I was like, okay, uh, it was 1.3, but when you break it down, the official numbers that they would have here is the LA Galaxy with 300,000 in 2022, which is the next season in GAM, and then 200,000 in 2023, and then 800,000 of that will be incentives. We obviously don't know what those incentives are, but I know who's making the deal on the other side at the end is Bruce Arena. He's making that with Greg Vanny or whoever is negotiating that. We know it's not Dennis Close anymore. But I feel like I don't know. Bruce Arena might have got the deal. The best. I think Leggett got the best deal, obviously, because he's going to get an opportunity to play more. But I think when I look at this deal, they only get 300,000 this year. In total, they could get 500,000. That's for sure. But say like, I don't know the incentives or whatever, how many goals or whatever. But I feel like that is too low if you only get 500,000 for one, a player that is extremely markable. A lot of people know him in the MLS. He plays on the U.S. men's national team. He's one of the athletes. He's played almost every single game. So if they do get $1.3 million for him, then okay, that makes sense. But if you don't get anything, if you don't get anywhere near around $1 million or around there, 800,000, I think the Galaxy are selling themselves short for such a high market value player that could potentially you probably had better offers for someone else, maybe the Galaxy, maybe Legit's like, I'm not going to, let's say for example, Houston Dynamo or something, a rebuilding type of team. I don't know those conversations, but I feel 500,000 right now it's too low, unless we find out what those incentives are. And if it doesn't get close to that $1.3 million or near that, I think it's more of a steal for the Revs, and I think it's going to be a loss financially. I think for me, financially, it's more of a loss on them than in the field because I feel like they didn't know where to use Legit, and I think he's going on a better opportunity to go play. But financially, I think the Galaxy, if they only get 500,000 to 600,000, I think that's way too low for Legit.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And I think you said the most important thing is Leggett gets the best out of the deal because he did say that there were other clubs that were interested. But like you said, he's at the level now. He's a caliber player now that could dictate a lot of those conversations, and he could be like, "Hey, man, that's not per se a situation I want to be in, and I'm not just going to go do that for the sake of hopping on a rebuilding team." And it's important to note that he's going back to Bruce Arena, like you mentioned. Like that's I think half of the battle of him picking the Revs over, anybody else that was interested to say that a coach that gave him that first chance that really knows him. And it's weird because that happens in soccer, and for people to like not think that plays enough of a role is crazy. I mean, it happens in Europe. Like, look at it. James is the first player that came to my mind where like James has been in Madrid, in Bayern, in Everton, and under Ancelotti, he's been great. But anytime Ancelotti goes, it's like he disappears again. And it's like players have that, and when there's coaches of certain stature, especially a Bruce's that that knows MLS well, that has seen Sebastian at the national team level as well. That's why it's such a big deal for the Revs, such a big get for them. And yeah, depending on those incentives for sure, monetary wise, it could be an L for the Galaxy in that sense too. But I think the most important part there is that Leggett is he like he said he wants to win, and I know that those comments got, I don't want to say misconstrued, but they definitely got chewed up today. But what do you
I mean,
expect?
look, if we could be honest, it's true. He didn't win anything with the
Right,
Galaxy
that's
this
what I'm
year,
saying.
right?
What are you
You know what I'm
expecting to
saying?
see?
Like, what is he gonna say? Look, Greg Vanny and they want to look elsewhere. That's totally fine with me. Like,
Yeah,
I don't think I have a problem him saying that because we've gotten to know Legit. Legit's not a
right,
spiteful. That to me, when I read that, I'm like, oh, he's spiteful about the
right,
Galaxy. It's
right,
not that.
right.
It's just like, all right, it just didn't work out here. Let me go with the Revs. They won the supporter shield. Obviously, they didn't get it done this year, but like I know Bruce Arena. I know what he's done. Obviously, previously with the Galaxy. I don't think there's nothing wrong. I know fans may take it wrong when you initially read it, but I just don't think there's nothing wrong with him saying that because it's honestly, it's the truth. And if
Yeah,
he wants to move on, he wants to move on, and he wants to win. That's totally fine. And he's at a point in his career where he hasn't experienced that, and he wants to experience that. He's experienced it with the national team, obviously this year. And I would say even those three wins against Mexico, that is definitely a plus. So he's experienced everything
sure,
with the
sure.
national team and everything with the club team, unfortunately. But yeah, I feel him going back with Bruce Arena. I was surprised. I think did you tweet this that he had never? I don't know if it was you, but he had never been to Boston.
Yeah, yeah. He said that today.
I was surprised he never been. Like, did the Galaxy never
He said
play?
apparently every time that the Galaxy played that he missed the game for some reason, and
Gotcha.
then the Revs usually come to LA for preseason, so that is kind of like the opposite effect. But yeah, he said he's never been to Boston, which is funny. But the other part too is that he's teaming up with a few people that he used to play with in LA as well.
Yeah,
Boateng is there, the Lagarde is there, so
yeah,
I think that part, like those little details, are like stuff that people may not deem important. But even today, I just found out that he's a very good friend of Matt Turner's, and obviously he got to know Matt really well throughout the latest U.S. men's national team camp. And it's like I asked him specifically about that, like you having a connection like Matt Turner on the team, but like not only how much does that help you want to go there, but how much does that help you like move forward? And like I said earlier, people might not think that Legit is worthy of being on the U.S. roster. Well, if they do qualify for the World Cup, but he's 100% of the mindset that he should be, and he's 100% of the mindset going towards that mentality that he's gonna do everything he can to be on that, which is why he mentioned a lot about him not being able to, I guess, find that defined role with the Galaxy over the years. And you also have to think about the Galaxy too. Like if you're a player, like right, 2 years with Zlatan, which where if we want to say the soccer was weird because GBS was like just cross the ball every time you get a chance, right?
yeah.
And and it's like that's how the game ran when Zlatan was there. And then you have that first game, the Chicharito, which was pretty much a mess. And then this year, which kind of just flamed out at the end. But like those are like you're playing under shadows, and like the Jet probably feels like, yo, I could be doing so much more. And he used the word master, like I haven't not been able to master a position with the Galaxy, which
Yep,
was
I would agree.
pretty telling to me. And that, like you said, he even said it when he was here in LA. Like he's a center attacking midfield. Like that's what he feels comfortable doing. So he said that he talked to Bruce, and that's what Bruce guaranteed that his role will be with the Revs. So I
I
mean,
mean, there you. I feel like there you have it. You feel me? Like
like how
he's
much more do you need, right?
yeah. Like you're gonna be the Coles, but look, you're gonna play the role you want to play. You know. So
Yeah,
hey, look, that's in this point in his career. All right, but how I gotta ask the chat because the chat is very sad about this. I kept seeing all these comments. How sad are we that we're losing Becky G? We ain't gonna have Becky G at the games anymore. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing that I kept seeing. They're like, "Yo, no more Becky G at the games and stuff." I probably saw her a couple times, but I wasn't looking for every time I saw her. But like the comments and everything, I just found that obviously funny and everything. But yeah, no more Becky G at the games.
as a New Englander that has moved to LA and been in LA for the past 3 years, I feel mostly sad for Becky G than anybody else because Foxborough. I don't. Nobody lives. First of all,
And
nobody
say
lives in
free
Foxborough.
Becky G in the chat.
Let me tell you this: nobody lives in Foxborough. That's number one.
uh,
Foxborough is nothing. It's just Gillette Stadium, and that's it. So I'm assuming maybe Boston,
she
maybe
will still
Rhode
be in our
Island.
hearts.
But man, I feel bad for her because like moving from LA to New England, especially the time that they're going to be moving because it's going to be really dead of the winter. It's going to be quite the awakening for both of them. But there's some cool places out there, man. Some cool places out there. It's not LA, but there's some cool places.
Yeah, no, that is the chat is hilarious.
Should be
Yeah,
closer to New York, man. Should be close to New York. I'm sure she'll be down in Florida a lot. I actually saw
G
her
Man is
down.
wild for this one. He said Becky G overrated. Don't at me. G Man, you came with the fighting words, man. You're crazy.
Becky G be traveling, man. She was down in Miami for the season opener this year. I was down there for the game, and she was chilling, man. I know she was on the TV stream a lot. She was, but I remember like after the game, she was on the field like hours after the game. They were taking pictures with David Beckham and all that. So she's gonna have fun and she's gonna do what she does regardless of where she's living at. But yeah, that's tough. That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's going on the other side of the country. Look, hey, it is what it is. It's unfortunate we won't add Becky G, but look, hey, best of luck to Sebastian, best of luck to Becky G, and we'll see. I definitely feel like it's gonna be a great opportunity for Legit. I really feel like maybe this is where he can maybe take his game to the next level, or maybe his game can be more consistent, at least to the
Yeah,
club.
I think that's what it is. Consistency. Consistency is the most important thing because I think that's what Galaxy fans are mostly upset about Leggett over the years is that he just never was consistently good. Like he had his flashes, but once again, the systems he was playing and the people he was playing around, like those things all play a factor. So I think if he's consistent, I think it's going to be fine for him. And I just want a lot of those Galaxy fans that have been chirping throughout the years that he's been here to keep that same energy when he's actually pretty successful under Bruce and in New England. Because, like I said, I think Galaxy fans are going to realize they're going to miss him a lot more than they expect to.
Yeah, and we'll see what they do with that money that they get, and obviously, I don't know if we'll find out what the final numbers are, but yeah, like I said earlier, anything less than close to a million, just how marketable the dude is, market wise. But yeah, we'll see. All right, let's move on. Obviously, Leggett and Jonathan Dos Santos, like we spoke, they're gone. But the Galaxy did sign Sasha Kleshman to a 1 year deal. I feel like that's not a bad deal. He's a great locker room guy. He definitely shows. He definitely wears. He's another player that wears the chest on his the crest on his chest proudly. He does a lot for the L Galaxy, and I feel like you do definitely need like a locker room guy, and what Sasha is, right? He obviously probably give you like 20 minutes, 30 minutes off the bench. You can definitely score the penalties. But what are your thoughts on Sasha signing a 1 year deal?
I think it was a no-brainer for the Galaxy, especially after, like I mentioned earlier, after Dos Santos no longer being there, and with the mindset of Leggett not being there either, because those guys in the locker room go a long way. And if you start taking a look around the Galaxy locker room now, you have all these foreign players that Vinny brought in. You have Chicharito. You have I want to say Araujo, who's kind of like their next big, I guess, MLS tenured person. But then you're like, where the same conversation we have about LAFC. Where's that MLS experience? Where is that veteran leadership? And in a league like this, it goes a long, long way. So it's a no-brainer. He's a valuable piece. I'm just interested to see how much differently he's used next season if he is, because what we saw him come off the bench late on a lot of different games this year. But at the end of the day, you said it, man. He's a player that he's prideful. He could give you some solid minutes, and he's going to give you all he has. And I think another idea about a player like that is like he's going to give you 100 every time, but he's going to let you know, like he's another one of the players that had to come out this season and said like, XYZ is crap or this is going really well. Like he's 100% honest and he's going to keep it. He's going to keep it real. And I think for the flow of the team, that's the best. Whether or not people buy into that type of stuff is a different story, but for sure, a player of that caliber that's been around for so long is only a good asset. And I think that a coach like Vanny, who's been around the league and had players of like the Michael Bradley stature and stuff like that, definitely knows that that's invaluable in MLS. So I think to me, it's a no-brainer for sure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think it's a player you need on your team, regardless of how many minutes he probably can provide you. I feel like obviously, he can score. He's been able to score these goals, but also I feel like the bonus to that is the intangibles, right? Guiding. I remember a conversation he had with us in the press call. He would, talk about like how he would talk to Jonah Rajo and Efrain on how to read the game and just certain things and what they could do better. You need a leader like that, like you said, that's been around the MLS for so long to be able to coach these guys up on certain aspects and stuff like that. But I think I like it. It's going to work out for the LA Galaxy, and you definitely need it. And he's a very like a guy that just really is proud of being a soccer player at his age and everything. He understands. Obviously, he understands. He still doesn't have the leg. He doesn't have the legs he once had, but he's going to give you everything he has. If it's for 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes or whatever, may need to play him in the first half or whatever. And he loves playing the game. So I think it's a great signing. A lot of people are really happy with it, and I'm not surprised. G Man over here with some shots. He says Sasha hooks up the team with the AARP membership, the discounts, I guess. I guess so. I don't know if he's that old, but yeah. I think you got to be like in your 50s or 60s on that one.
The discounted movie passes.
Yeah, the discounted movie passes, right? But yeah, no. Let's talk. I think it's a great signing, but let's talk about the next thing. It was Paul Arriola. He was being linked. I think they reached out to Paul Arriola. Now we know now. I think Stephen Goff reported that. Here's a quote that on his tweet. He says he's not going anywhere, referring to Paul Arriola. No interest from us in moving him at all. And according, that's what DC United said. So looks like Paul Arriola will not be joining the LA Galaxy as of now. Maybe things could change. Maybe a better offer in the deal can come or whatever, but it doesn't look like he's leaving. I thought you potentially could get one U.S. men's national player for another. And I was like, okay, that probably makes sense, but that's not that's not going to happen. What are your thoughts on that? Pablo Arriola not being no longer in the options for LAFC.
I was actually surprised that it came out that Ariola was of interest because I think for DC United that's a terrible move, and that's a team that in their own way is trying to figure out what they're doing and have their own issues. And the same reasons I gave behind Leggett, having a player of that caliber, having a player of that experience, both in MLS and with national team, is big for the locker room. And Ariola, I mean, bouncing off the injury, it's tough because it was pretty gruesome what happened to him, and playing in a place like DC United, it's a little tougher for I guess that attention, for that notoriety, and then he gets a lot of flack when he's on the national team too, as most players do. But I honestly, even when that came out, I was like, I don't know if this is a great move for the Galaxy anyway. I'm just trying to factor in the team that played this past year and how he would fit with that team, because like I said, we don't know how Galaxy are going to move forward in what positions and what ways. But what we do know is that Vanny seems to be 100% in on Kevin Cabral, right? And I feel like Ariola and Cabral would have some type of clash that it wouldn't work the best in I guess in that workflow for the Galaxy. So I don't think that's a bad thing that he's not in the plans for the Galaxy anymore, because I didn't like it from the beginning, to tell you the truth. But I am interested to see what happens with the Galaxy, because, like I said earlier, now you're down two key players in the same midfield position, and you have holes to fill. And also, like, we still always talk about the defensive issues that they've had, and then is Chicharito going to be able to coexist with Jolich? Like, we didn't get to see them play together last year. It was always one or the other. So I feel like the Galaxy, for as many strides that they took during the season, and maybe it was just a narrative thing where everybody was like, oh my God, like they won those stretch of games and Chicharito was playing so well. I feel like they didn't really improve that much in terms of like moving forward. Because I'm like, now it feels like this offseason is kind of similar to the last one, where it's like,
yeah, because they didn't make the playoffs. That's
yeah,
the
like they
biggest
didn't make
thing,
the playoffs at the end of the day, and it's like, are they
yeah.
really in place or not? Because the last time we saw them in the playoffs, it was like, all right, they made it there, and they won that game in Minnesota, and then obviously the game against LAFC. But those are the Zlatan days, and I'm like, I understand the unrest with the Galaxy, and I'm like, right now it seems like a lot more of those moves are not as justified as we may have thought they were during the season. So it's interesting offseason for
Yeah.
the Galaxy. It is for LAFC, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you on that. Obviously, the Galaxy not making the playoffs definitely was like, okay, maybe you took a step forward. Yeah, you probably maybe you took 4 steps forward and 3 steps
Right,
back, and
right.
but it wasn't that big of a leap when you look at them missing the playoffs. Maybe if they made the playoffs and they had a run like RSL, okay, then you're like, dang, this team is for real. But
Right, right.
them missing the playoffs, especially being at home, yeah, I was like, I don't know. There's definitely more questions about the Galaxy. Obviously talking to a lot of Galaxy fans as well. They definitely are very upset. They weren't happy with the way the season ended. And I talked to a lot of them, and they're like, I didn't buy the shoes because why am I going to buy the shoes? The shoes that came out afterwards for both teams are like, no, they're not going to win. They don't deserve any of my money. I know fans that did buy the shoes too. Look, I'm not going to hold it against you if you did. If you didn't, go spend your money. I thought the kicks are cool for both
Yeah.
clubs. But yeah, I know some fans that were very upset that they wouldn't buy the shoes. I was like, you're gonna get over it, man. Just buy the shoes. Just buy the shoes.
Well,
But
we've talked about it throughout the year. Like there is such thing as fan fatigue, and it's like the Galaxy have been in the league from the very beginning. It's the same way with the Revs. Like you see the Revs start to have their fan base get back on track, but it's like it doesn't matter. Like it could be an expansion team, it could be an original team. Like if a team is not being successful on the field after
yeah,
over and over after a couple of years, fans will start kind of you know losing hope and losing faith and losing all that, and it's just normal. It happens in sports, man.
yeah. Look, there's nothing wrong with that. I completely agree. So talking about that, obviously both clubs, so we're finding out that this year, I tweeted about this that this season they're only going to play each other twice, which is I think is great. I know they played like at least three times the last couple of years. They played up to four or more during COVID. So they're going to play the first match. They're going to play April 9th at Dignity Hill Sports Park. That's the Saturday. And then the second leg, they're going to play, or second match, I should say, is Friday, July 8th at the Bank of California Stadium. So I think personally, I think this is good. They were playing these games way too many times. It's good to have two games. Yeah, and if they do play another one, hopefully you hope it's a playoff game. But what are your thoughts on this? I think a lot of the fans I was talking from both sides, they were happy these two teams were only, even though we know these games at times can be really great. We know the last one wasn't because of all the injuries and the way the form both teams were. But what are your thoughts on these two teams playing twice
Yeah,
this next
I
season?
100% agree with you, man. I think two is the right number. Remember that COVID season they played like four times and like behind closed doors, and it was just like they already seemed like scrimmages, but like B is like well, he wants to watch this over and over again. Like it's not fun. I think two is the perfect number. I know that I did see fans talk about they want three because then it's a tiebreaker type thing, but two is fine. I think each team deserves one at home, right? One in Carson, one at the bank, and that's that. If they play a third time like they did in 2019, it ends up being a playoff game. And how great was that year where they played two solid games against each other that season? That was the year that Zlatan scored a hat trick, right? And
Hmm.
then they go and play the playoff game, which is probably the most memorable game in LAFC history, if you want to be honest. So, yeah, I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect. Like I said, we know that the energy around these games are so massive, and I think anything more than two kind of waters it down, regardless of who's on the field and injury. Like, remember the last game we talked about? Like, the energy in the stadium was there, right? In Carson, it was there. It was that Sunday night game or Sunday afternoon game. But the game itself, like we talked about it in the press box after the game, like I could have just stayed home. Like it wasn't.
I wasted my time, wasted my
Yeah,
gas driving to
like
that game. Look,
it
I didn't pay
wasn't
for the
anything.
ticket, but I
Right.
was I was upset. I was like, I want a refund.
It
I want a
was.
refund for my
It was
time.
like the emotion on the field was not at all remotely what it should be for a game of that stature, especially like I said, considering that LAFC had a great section of fans there. The Galaxy fans were riled up, they were going, and it's like, that's what you want from those games, but you want that to translate on the field. So I think them playing any more than twice is a waste because that's tiresome for the players too. We heard Julian Araujo talk about it time after time. Like these are the games you get up for, and to play your rival more than twice in the season is kind of like, all right, man, it waters it down. So it's
Yeah.
perfect, man. Two is great to me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And then look, if one wins one, okay, you live with that. Two of them, takes it. Yeah, and I think the next game would be the playoffs, but I like it. I'm with it. Two games and that's it. Let's talk about LAFC. Let's turn the corner. Let's talk about the black and gold. Obviously, lots of things going on. Still no coach. It's been almost a month. We had you on what last week, 2 weeks ago. It was almost pretty much a month from now that they let Bob Bradley go.
Yep, yep.
No head coach. Eduardo Tuesta, your boy, he's gone up Palmeiras. They've added a couple players. But before we talk about the head coaching job, let's talk about let's talk about Eduardo Tuesta. Got him right here. Let me play this clip. Look, he's happy. He's moved on, and let's hear what he has to say.
Hola familia Palmeiras, emocionado, agradecido de estar acá. agradecido con Dios, con ustedes. Espero poder conocerlos pronto en el estadio y poder empezar a gozar de buenos resultados, de alegrías, de buen fútbol. Y nada, avanti palestra.
My man already knows all the words and everything. He was ready to go. Your initial thoughts. El Profe is gone from LAFC. What are your thoughts on this?
Sad, man. It's sad for LAFC to have a player that was a staple here. I think it was no surprise to say that he was the most important player for LAFC throughout the years, and I'll argue that against anybody, against Carlos Vela, against anybody, because people forget that Atuesta was very instrumental to the season Vela had in 2019. And I talked to Vela a lot that year. I talked to Atuesta a lot that year, and the connection that they had was incredible, and I think that's why you saw Vela at that stature. Not to discount everything that Mark Anthony K did and Latif Blessing did, but Atuesta was the motor, and we knew that from the beginning he was going to continue to be that. And I just think that his growth over the years in MLS really showed a lot about the type of player he is, because I mentioned to you before, I've watched Atuesta for a while when he played in Colombia as well, and he came to MLS with a very clear purpose of trying to grow into that next level, and he undoubtedly did. It's unfortunate that this last year goes the way it did, and injuries and whatnot see him off the field. But I was a little surprised by the team. Well, not really, because it had been out there, but I think him going back to South America is a big deal because he's closer to home, especially now that he just had his son, which is super important to be closer to family that way. And two, Palmeiras is a huge team in South America, probably the best team in South America right now, coming off those Libertadores wins. And the attention is there. Like, people say, sometimes those leagues don't get a lot of attention, but they're definitely, maybe the league itself and Interplay doesn't, but when it comes to these tournaments down in South America, when it comes to national team coaches, it's easier for them to watch those games. It's easier for them to go to those games instead of, like, let's say Renato Rueda, the Colombian coach, being able to go to an LAFC game. It's not going to happen, but it's not hard for him to just hop over to Brazil and see him live. So I think for Atuesta's growth, it's a huge deal that he's going to be down there, because it helps him in that goal of being in that national team pool, which is obviously something that he's always wanted, and he's been able to do at the lower levels, at the youth levels. But now he's hopefully going to be able to do it at the major, the major team level. So I think it's good for him. For LAFC, like I said, it's a big loss, and that midfield now is it's going to have a lot of questions as well, which is funny, because I think that they have the pieces there. Like, I think people have, like, for some reason, lowered their, I guess, expectations or levels about Sifu, who's a great midfielder, who does it he does it consistently, to me, enough, or used to, at least in Ecuador, when before he got scouted for LAFC. Like, he puts in the work, and he's high motor. I mean, obviously there's pieces of his game that people need to see better, finishing or better things like that. But he's there. Latif is still there, which we know what Latif gives. So it's not like they're gonna. To me, it's not like the Galaxy, where the midfield now is like, all right, now we just lost two people. How do we fill that? But Atuesta's role is it's not something that you just fill. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not.
it's good. No, I think it's gonna be hard to replace. I mean, just
For
the
sure.
passing.
For sure.
I like what Sifu does, but, like, offensively, obviously, you probably did more than what Tuesta potentially did. Outside of Tuesta, doing the free kicks and stuff. But nah, what a Tuesta does and did for LAFC cannot be replicated, unless you get a veteran type player from South America and you plug and play. But I think it's going to be very hard, and I think I'm very, I'm very interested who because initially when I was thinking, okay, the midfield's good with the Tuesta. This is before the Tuesta news. To
Right.
me,
Right.
it was the biggest thing. It was like the back line and the goalkeeper. I think the last time we talked about it was
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
back line and the goalkeeper. I was like, okay, they need to address these 5 positions. Now it's a 6 position, right?
Yeah.
What a Tuesta is like, and that's a big position, because you don't have someone controlling the midfield. It's gonna be very difficult. And what he did, right? He developed gradually throughout the MLS, right? He's somewhat of I would say he's a veteran player. He's definitely a veteran player for MLS. I think he's gonna have good success in Brazil. I had a couple Brazilian reporters actually reach out to me. Um, and asked me about how he plays, his play style. And so I was like, look, we call him a prophet for a reason, because he controls the midfield. He knows what to do, his passing. And I think some Brazilian outlet had put like this mashed up video of his passes, his goals, and all these things. And I just sent them that, like, this is what you expect after this is a highlight reel. But like his passing was insane. He did struggle this season because of injuries, this past season, the injuries and everything like that. But so did Diego Rossi. The two players that were expected to go to Europe and everything like that, are expected to move on, had struggling seasons. And I don't know if I would necessarily can put that on both Eduardo Tuesta and Rossi. I think it's more on the club. I think the club, I think LAFC really dropped the ball on Rossi and developing Rossi and Tuesta to go to the final step. Because I know I had gotten word at the start of the 2022 season that Palmeiras was interested and asked around, the LAFC folks are like, no, it's nothing, blah, blah. They're like, don't believe everything you hear. I'm like, yeah, but you guys never say anything, right? So it was funny. I was like, you guys said the same thing about the Brian Rodriguez news, which was hilarious. I literally said that to them. I was like, you guys literally said the same thing about Brian Rodriguez news. So I was like, well, if it's not anything, then I mean, there's definitely a lot of smoke there. Then a week later, what happens is a Twista re-signed with LFC. So I was like, okay, maybe the Palmeiras thing was just whatever it was. But this confirmed everything to me. Because the Twista was really thinking of leaving at the start of the year. And LAFC fans or LAFC front office should be thanking Eduardo Twista, because if he didn't resign, he'd be walking away for free. And LAFC would not be getting the $4 million that they're getting from Eduardo Twista, because Eduardo Twista was pretty much a free agent, I think, in the summertime. I don't recall, but I don't know if you remember, he was a free agent. So he resigned. He pretty much did them a thank you for the 4 years and resigned for them so for they could get a transfer, because or else Twista could have been gone and walked for free. He didn't have to resign with LAFC. He could have just finished out this last season here, and that would have been it. But he resigned with them. And I wonder if him and his agent kind of did this type of deal, because it doesn't make sense for him to leave right now, because his contract's till the end of the season, or till I think April or the summertime. I guess it makes sense for you, but I wonder if they had a conversation. Look, like, well, I'll resign with you under one condition. If I want to leave after this season, I get to leave after the season, because I feel like because I think that's the only reason he resigned with LAFC with those intentions, because it's very surprising that he resigns for one more year and he leaves half the year. But I think in the back of his mind, he knew, like, look, if this season doesn't go well, or if we have a really good season and Palmeiras is still interested, I'm leaving. Because it was the $4 million that initially that Palmeiras didn't want to pay, or I think LAFC didn't want to accept back in like April, whenever the start of the season was. So I definitely do feel like Atuesta had been eyeing Palmeiras. He's happy. He's ready to move on. Rossi was ready to move on. Atuesta's ready to move on. There's going to be a lot of these players that are ready to move on. And I don't have anything wrong with Atuesta wanting to move on, because you just said, because the next step would be in Europe. It's an easier, you just mentioned, right, the easier flight to go see these players from Brazil, all these different players, closer to his family. And I think, it's good for Atuesta, good for LFC. You can make $4 million. But I think, grand scheme of things, it's a little still too low, but look, it's just what you had to work with, and you paid what I think was $1 million for Atuesta.
Yeah.
I mean, you get $3 million off of that. It's not bad. I definitely felt like you could have got more, but the way the season ended with LAFC and everything like that, you're only going to get so much. You didn't even make the playoffs, but good for Atuesta. Now, I think it's a very difficult spot to fill for LAFC. We're going to have to see who comes in, because now you have to. Now, to me, that's another added piece. Yeah, they added Escobar, but I still think you need to add more pieces to back line, the goalkeeping, and the midfield with the Twista. But let me ask you that. We know there's a DP spot until Rossi is sold or whatever happens with him. Would you use that on a midfielder?
I think it's not far-fetched to say that they should use it on a midfielder. I mean, I think when you think about a team like LAFC and how important the midfield has been to the make of that team, and granted, we're talking about under Bob Bradley, but we know that that system, they want to kind of keep that attacking mindset. I think having a DP midfielder, a established DP midfielder, will definitely help LAFC move forward, because, like we mentioned, this is a new look now, right? And we've talked about all this time, talking about big nuggets. We talk about all this time that this is going to be 2.0, or there's going to be a few minor changes here and there, but this is now a completely different team when you think about all the changes that have happened.
It's not a sense like a rebuild.
It is, and the only reason why it's not a per se a rebuild is because you still have pieces there that are good enough to not have to start from the beginning. And I think the term rebuild just naturally has a negative connotation where you think that it's a team that's starting from zero. But if you think about it, like they're gonna
If Vela leaves, if Vela doesn't come back, it's
exactly
yeah.
They're holding on to Vela. They're holding on to Latif, and that's really all you have from that core team that you started with 4 years ago. And it's not surprising because we knew coming into this past season, like there's going to be moves that were going to be made. We talk about all the time. If COVID never happened, Rossi and Atuesta are probably gone before they left, and for a lot more money than they went for. But because of the way things panned out, things go a little different. So I think that a midfielder DP would be 100% smart, because I don't think that. I mean, obviously up top they're fine with having Chicho be there and Vela for however long he's going to stay. Defensively, I don't think. I mean, you could sign a DP defender, but I don't think that's going to make anybody truly happy. You know what I mean?
No,
like that's not going to move the needle anybody. So I think midfielder is the only way to go there. But like you said, it's not easy to replicate what he did for LAFC. It's not going to be easy to fill those roles. And I just think that I think a very underrated aspect about what he brought to LAFC was a lot of what Bob Bradley taught him throughout the years. And maybe the only thing I could see is like maybe whatever new coach comes in could whoever fills the position could kind of be the same that Bob was with Atuesta in terms of like teaching, hey, this is the style that I like. This is what I like you to do. Because Atuesta coming from Colombia and playing the game that he played there, the way that he played it, to playing how he did under Bob Bradley were kind of really two different things. And the one thing about Atuesta is that I knew from the beginning is like he could play in that 8, he could play in that 6, he could play in the 10 if they needed him to. But Bob really was on him to be like, yo, this is what we want you to do. And I think that was so much part of the growth that he was able to make in the 4 years. So they're gonna have to fill it somehow, and I think that's instrumental to obviously whatever the new coach wants, whoever that may be, moving forward to whatever they do.
Yeah, and I think it also depends too. Maybe it will be a big piece, or maybe not, depending how we don't even know who the coach is going to be, but like how they play, right? How their play style and stuff like that. Maybe you may not miss it twice as much as you really thought because the coach, or if they play similar, then yeah, you definitely are going to miss them. Alex says playing FIFA and listening to Gio and Andy is a good combo. Yeah, man. Let's listen to all our moves on FIFA, Alex. So
Alex
you have a success. You have a success, Alex, the GM. But yeah, no. What I will say, if Vela doesn't come back, or they're not able to solve or whatever, get Vela, it's a rebuild. Right now, G-Man had a good comment. He said maybe not a real rebuild, but a restructure. I'd say that. But if Vela's gone, then it's definitely it would be definitely a rebuild. But that's not to say that they can't have a successful season. But I think the more time that passes without knowing who the head coach is, the more questions are asked about the front office, the more questions are asked about where this team is going and all these different things. I just do think it's kind of odd that, maybe it will get announced tomorrow or next week. Who knows? But I think I know a lot of fans are a little frustrated on not knowing the head coaching position. And I know you want to take your time, but I feel like you're almost getting to the point that like, okay, when is this really happening or not, or you're going to pick up one of your assistants. Before we get into the head coaching discussion, let's talk about the recent acquisitions and the MLS draft. Let's talk about Tristan Blackman, because he was picked off first. So he was picked up by Charlotte FC in the expansion draft and instantly traded to Vancouver, I believe, for money, for some money, I believe GAM or something. I forgot for how much, but he was traded right away. What are your thoughts on obviously LAFC left him unprotected. Charlotte was able to, you guys know how the rules work or don't, Charlotte could pick one player from each team, up to 5 different players. What are your thoughts on Tristan Blackman no longer with LAFC?
I feel like that's a big loss too, and maybe people don't see it that same way, but I always like Tristan, and I think that he took a lot of strides as well, maturity wise, and in his game that you could see, but he was never able to fit in whether or not they wanted to play center back or whether or not they wanted to play right back. And those same conversations we were having earlier about Sebastian Lleget, like when you're not able to be in that defined position that you really uh, see as your best, it makes things a lot more difficult. So I think there was a lot of moments throughout the seasons that Tristan was, out of place or he makes bad decisions. I'm thinking about like that stupid red card against like SKC or something like that. Well, there's just moments that come to your mind, but in general, I thought he was a pretty solid defender. And I think that I think LAFC has I don't know what's the right way to put it, but they have this mindset, right? Like they had Walker Zimmerman, and then they had Eddie Segura, and then they had like there's like this pride of like that they have, that LAFC fans have, obviously coming up the 2019 season, but I'm like, a player like Tristan is integral in that process, right? And for him to not be there any longer because now they're trying to figure out like still who's the best center back pairing from what they have, whether or not it's Eddie and Fall, or if it's Murillo, or if it's Biaga, whatever the case may be. There's still questions about Moon defensively, so it's like I feel like there's so much turnover defensively that maybe people are like, whatever, like we'll be fine without him. But I feel like he would have been a pretty solid piece to have for LAFC to have. But I also feel like Tristan is, to me, a bona fide starter in MLS. So for him to be able to get that, I'm more surprised that Charlotte was agreed to let him go to Vancouver. Because if I'm Charlotte coming in new, I probably would have kept a player of that caliber. That's just me. But I feel like in Vancouver, it could be a good opportunity for him. I'm excited to see him play under Sartini because Sartini's a madman. And I think Tristan, he builds off energy, and he's one of those type of people. So I feel like that could be a good look for him. But I just think that a player like that wants to get his chances, and when you're not able to get those consistently, then obviously that's going to happen. So I feel personally, I feel like it's a pretty big loss for me for LAFC. But I don't think that, given the past season and how much he's been in and out and stuff like that, I don't think that the team itself would miss him that much. But for sure, I think that they could have used him next season.
Yeah, the biggest thing that surprised me about that is that they protected Marco Farfan over Tristan Blackman. And I felt like Marco Farfan did not have I would say he had like an up and down season.
Yeah,
Nothing
yeah,
that
sure.
like stood out crazy. And Tristan Blackman, maybe LAFC knows his injuries are a lot more serious than they are, or whatever. Maybe that's the thing. I don't know. But to me, without that, Tristan Blackman's the better defender. I think to me, Tristan Blackman's a better overall player than what I've seen from Marco Farfan. Just in this last season. And I would have protected Tristan Blackman over Farfan. But that's just me thinking out loud. Because even though if you don't want to have, or you don't really see him in your future, I feel like Tristan Blackman has more value than Marco Farfan, and you could have traded or done something like that. Maybe if you didn't see him in his plans. But I think the biggest thing about this, all these decisions are being made without a head coach, and I think that's the biggest. That's the biggest thing that just doesn't make any sense to me, because all these players, yeah, it's good. Like, look, you're having a couple players come in, this and that, but like players are getting picked up, financial decisions are being made, and all this different thing. Because the new coach can't come in and be like, okay, bam, this is who I work. And this. I got my players. I'm gonna bring in so and so. Already got someone for the right back. I already got someone for the left back. Oh, we need defenders. I know where to get defenders. Oh, we need this. Yeah, you're not gonna replace Vela, Chicho. That's given. But like, there's gonna be certain players that a coach may have be like, oh, this was not my player. Like, this is not who I see. That happens all around the world. The only thing is difficult to bring in if it is if it is a South American coach or somewhere around there. That's harder to bring in players from the connections you have, even if it's in Mexico, unless it's someone from the MLS. But I feel like the next coach coming in may like these players and may not like these players that the front office is deciding. And I think that's the biggest head scratching move, because you could look down in February and all these players are getting picked up. They may just be benched. They may not get that playing time. So we'll see what happens with that. So that to me just hasn't made sense on all these decisions being made, but we'll see how that plays out for LAFC. Um, The next guy, the LAFC acquired Ismail Tashari, Shadri, who played in the MLS Cup final with NYCFC. He was picked up from Charlotte FC in exchange for 400,000 in GAM, which is, I think it's a lot of money. He did win an MLS Cup. I did see him. I think people shared on Instagram that he shared his that he's excited to come back next season. I think the day of the parade, and with the day of the parade was the day of the MLS draft. And he gets traded to LAFC, which is unfortunate, because it's the way MLS is set up with these weird rules, and I saw that floating around and stuff. But what are your thoughts on this guy? He looked good coming off the bench. I have not seen NYCFC outside of the one time I think they played LAFC this season, because I'm not sure if LA Galaxy played them at all this year. I saw the MLS Cup final, but it's hard for me to tell off what he says. He's young. He definitely looks versatile. But what are your thoughts on this move?
For LAFC fans that remember the game against New York City this season, Tashari was the guy that scored the goal in the 90th minute. So that's a fun fact for you guys.
Is that the K pass? Was that
that's
the
one? No, that was the one that was off the set piece that just he was by.
Off the set piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, Tashari's a good player. I just think that he had some injuries that kind of plagued him in New York City, and he was a starter, like that. He was their guy for a while, but then I think with Tati's emergence, somebody like Maxi Morales, they started going a different way for their attack. But he was always first off the bench for New York City, and I think he scored like 7 goals this past season, which is, I feel like, coming off the season LAFC had, I think that's a good thing, because nobody else was scoring besides Chicho this year. But B, if you think about the fact that Tati won the Golden Boot, and then the fact that I think Maxi Morales was up there at somewhere up, not too far behind Carlos Hill for assists, for the Shadri to score 7 goals, mostly off the bench, is pretty. I think it's pretty telling. I think he could be a good asset to LAFC. I see it more as like a death move. Like I don't know if he's gonna necessarily be a starter.
It's an expensive death move.
Yeah, exactly. That's why but that goes to the next point or the point that you just said. Is like the coach that comes in could be like, yo, I love this guy. Like he's gonna be my guy. You know what I mean? Like, so it's hard to tell. But I think he could consistently be a starter if we're just talking about the player and his
The only thing to that is I'm just thinking out loud. Brian Rodriguez, Chicho,
exactly.
and Vela, like,
right.
Where's this $400,000 player going?
Exactly. It's like, where do you put him? Like, that's the only reason why I'm like, it's gonna, he's gonna have to come off the bench like he was in New York. But those are all decisions that I guess the coach will make. The one thing I will say is, if you're playing him on that right wing, is I feel like over the past few years with Vela, we haven't seen anybody that was really a good enough caliber sub that if Vela has to come off, there's somebody that really comes in that's like, oh, this guy could still be pretty good. Like, I feel like the mindset was whenever Vela came off the field, it's like, damn, there goes half of the attack. But a player of Tashari's level, I think it's a pretty solid move. If you're looking for a Vela sub, just saying that's what they're gonna play. I think that's a pretty good move to have there. And he's definitely proven that he could score. And he's one of those players that the one thing about him is that he's gonna shoot the ball. I know that for sure. He's not afraid to shoot. So for all the areas that LAFC were lacking this past season, and I guess the year before, I feel like it's a pretty good player to have. But yeah, like you said, that's an expensive death move for sure.
Yeah, I just think he definitely seems like an exciting player, and obviously 7 goals is nothing to look over. I just don't know where he'll play without a head coach, without knowing how the head coach wants to play. And this thing to me right now, you're not necessarily missing offensive weapon, or you're necessarily needing offensive weapons. I think you need more defensive weapons. Like another center back or a left back. I don't really think Chiqui Palacios is the guy as a starter. And I don't know if the next head coach, whoever that is, may see him. I do see Chiqui Palacios coming off the bench or developing a little bit more. He's had an up and down games. The center back position, if Eddie Segura is healthy, yeah, you put him in there. Mamadou Fall potentially. But Jesus Murillo is shown that consistent time and time he's not a capable starter. To be in this league, I just don't see him as an elite starter. He can come off the bench, but anything outside of that. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And then obviously the goalkeeping situation. That still needs to be addressed. Maybe you want to wait for a head coach. I think that makes sense to wait on a head coach, to make those decisions. But that goes to my point. Like, why isn't there a head coach? So we'll have to see. Let's talk about Franco Escobar from Atlanta United. So LAC acquired him for up to $600,000 in general allocation money, which includes 250 and GAM in 2022 and up to 350 and GAM in 2023 based on metrics. That is a defender. I believe he plays right back. What are your thoughts on Franco Escobar, who came from Atlanta United?
I think Franco could be pretty good as well. I think he had a weird ending in Atlanta, which was when all of that stuff was going on with basically everybody down there in Atlanta United. So I think he's on a path that he's really hungry to prove himself. And once again, this team that right now doesn't have a coach and doesn't have, I guess, defined favorites. I feel like anybody that's coming into this team right now feels like they have a position to fight for, and 100% in that right back role, that's 100% the truth for LAFC. So he could emerge as being, being a starter and being pivotal to this team. And I think of a player that has experience, a player that that was part of that Atlanta team, which is also an expansion team that came in and had early success, is important as well. So yeah, I think that he, like I said, he could potentially be a guy for LAFC, because I think we're going to start moving away from this. These are the defined guys, and that type of stuff is going to change now that Bob Bradley's not around. And we mentioned it. That's the type of stuff that LAFC needed more of, because had they had that under Bob Bradley, they might have had a lot more success than they did in the past 2 seasons. But Bob stuck to his guys. Bob stuck to his ways, and for a lot of reasons, that was a downfall for a lot of those players and that team in general. So yeah, I think Franco's a good move, and I think that one of those moves that could definitely help you feel a lot more at ease with the back line in general. But there's still, some moving pieces back there that need to be addressed for sure.
Yeah, no, I like this move. I like the Franco move. I know that I think they said he has a temperament or whatever, but I think this is a move that made sense to me. He has experience. He has MLS experience. He understands the league. I just think you just gotta hopefully, get a lot more guys. I think you gotta, like I said earlier, you gotta get someone on the left side to see, and obviously what this goalkeeping situation looks like. Let's talk about the head coaching vacancy. Still, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. We're talking about it again. The job is still open.
Apply here.
Huh? Apply here, right? Apply here. We'll call you in 2 weeks. Let you know if you we'll let you know if you got the job or not.
Oh man.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it feels like for the LAFC job. Like, hey, it's like, positions open, taking applications, but we're just seeing what we can get. So Renato Paiva is another name from Ecuador. So news, Athletic reported that JT John Thornton was out there in Ecuador and he met with them. This has been reported by Athletic. He's out there. But there's another report from a lot of news outlets from Ecuador. They're saying that Renato is happy with his current club and doesn't want to go anywhere. So that came out right after the Athletic reported and everything like that. And I had a couple people from Ecuador comment on my tweet that I did. They're like, he's not going anywhere. Leave our guy alone. I think they just won the championship down in Ecuador. I was like, look, I'm just relaying the info. I'm the messenger here. So obviously that doesn't look good. Maybe they offer him more money or anything like that, but he does not. For a coach to say that, to shoot it down is, it's pretty like, yeah. When I read that, it's like, yeah, he's not going. He's not going unless something drastic happens and they throw him more money or something like that. But I don't really see that happen. Go ahead.
What's the thing? IDV is one of Ecuador's biggest teams. Like they've had success in Copa Libertadores, like which I mentioned earlier. In South America is a big deal for tournaments and for exposure of those clubs. But the thing that I laugh about is that I think this is his first year down there with IDV, and he was hired to replace their old coach, who was hired by Charlotte FC. So I don't think IDV is in the position that wants like this guy to walk away to MLS, knowing that the last guy just walked away to MLS.
I did not know that.
Yeah, to me, I saw that and I was like, nah, that's probably not likely at all.
Yeah, and then he just won the championship down there, right? So it's like, I know fans are, yeah, you're not letting this guy go. So that name's off the list. I would say for now, Juan Carlos Osorio is still there. I don't think Jesse Marsh. It sounds like to me Jesse Marsh was like Thanks, but nah, I think I'm gonna look for jobs in Europe because else he would have been announced now.
Yeah.
I know LAFC has a good relationship. Knows Jesse Marsh. I know John Thornton has a good relationship. I'm pretty sure that call was potentially made, but Jesse Marsh probably doesn't seem interested in coming and coaching MLS. And also, you got to think he just went. What was it? RB Salzburg was who he was coaching. Going from there coaching Champions League, maybe he still thinks he could get a job in Europe, and I would agree with that. And MLS LAFC does not sound as intriguing. You have Steve Cherundolo, Ante Razov, which is assistant coach. Mohamed Turco. I don't know if that's still being thrown around, but Jaime Lozano. No, that was another rumor. But what are your thoughts on this? Like the job is still open, right? The applications are still open. We're a week from Christmas, essentially like a week from Christmas Eve. And still no official announcement. I know LAFC put out a video with John Thornton talking, but I don't know if that's what the message the fans wanted to hear. I think they wanted to hear who their coach was.
Yeah, right. It's been the same thing over and over. Like them just like, hey, we're working on it. And at this point, it's like if you're not gonna announce the coach, nobody wants to hear anything else. Like
exactly,
announce the coach.
Exactly.
There's no need to put
keep
more
explaining.
Yeah, because at this point, all that's happening is the time is running, and I forget that the season starts so quickly next year that we're about to be in the new year, right? And as soon as January hits, like you're talking about preseason already starts, and that just ramps everything up incredibly. So to me, this coach has to be announced within the next few weeks. I'm not saying it has to be in December, but there's no way that
I would feel like December.
I feel like it should. I feel like it should, but I'm not saying that it will. But there's no way they get past like the first week of January and still.
Well, when's the winter transfer window start? Like the first week of January, I believe, right?
Yeah, somewhere.
Let me look at that. So it's like, to me, I feel like if it doesn't get announced this next week, and it may be an odd time, there may be some question for concern. Because
we'll do like the Jaguars did last night and announce it at like midnight. Like, yo, we hired
like with Urban Meyer. Well, that is a terrible situation. That's pretty bad. So I think the window's already up.
On the Juan Carlos Osorio front, which seems to actually be like a credible, I guess, candidate or whatever the case may be. He just finished coaching his last game, like probably 5-10 minutes ago, with America de Cali. So their season is officially over in Colombia. So he's now, I guess, so that could, if that is a natural candidate, that could speed up the process as well.
So that's the guy that could be announced. Because I don't know if you make the announcement Friday. Maybe if you're like, damn, this Osorio's the guy. I don't know if that's the guy for a lot of people. I don't know. I remember with the Mexican national team, he did win it for us against Germany, but that was the best game I've ever been to in my life live. Absolutely. I will admit that it was an exciting game. But there was a lot of head scratching movements and stuff like that. But I don't know if this is if Osorio's the guy, but we'll see. But I think to me it's just interesting that they're still interviewing at this point. I think that's the thing. It's been a month. I think it's literally a month since Bob Bradley was let go. Bob Bradley's already had a head start. Bob Bradley knew he was leaving LAFC the day before, even a couple weeks before, and Bob Bradley's already had a head start. And LAFC, look, I get that you want to make sure you find the right coach and stuff like that. But I feel like, to me, the list of coaches should have started before the season. I don't know.
I agree. And I think the longer it drags on, and I think we talked about this, the longer it drags on, it leads me to believe that they're just going to go with somebody like Cherundolo or Razov for the sake of, like you said, there was time for this to transpire, right? And you knew that Bob was initially or eventually going to be on his way out. You had that time, and that search should have really been something that started then or prior to that even transpiring. So for them to still kind of be in the process, and who knows, man, they could have, this is all speculation and who they are interviewing, but they could have a list of candidates that we have no clue who the hell actually are, and they pop up with a random name or something like that. But the longer that this transpires, I think that somebody like Cherundolo ends up being more of I guess, of a feasible option to kind of go in and take over. But like I
Well,
told
I
you,
think that'd be look. I don't know. Look, I seen Sharonda with the record with the lights. Obviously, it's not good, but look, I don't want to downplay Sharonda or Rossoff, but I feel like you could have tested them out during this last season because
yeah, yeah.
unless the front office didn't think Bob Bradley was going to leave and maybe come back for. To me, I don't know. Me and you, I had no. There's no way I saw Bob Bradley coming back, whether they wanted him back or here. Everybody I spoke to, that was close with Bob, he was not happy with the team. He was not happy with the club. He was not happy with the front office. Obviously, all that came true at the end because he left right away and got a job ASAP. He was ready to move on. So Bob Bradley knew he wasn't leaving, but I kind of wonder if LAFC did not know if he was leaving. If they're like, oh, maybe we can convince him to stay another year, this or that. But like I feel like all that to me was known during the season that I didn't think Bob Bradley was going to come back at all. And I wonder if they didn't think that or whatever. Maybe this is what's taking them so long, but I think that's just to me it's just bad planning.
Yeah.
Because the season coming up so quick. Look, it could be tomorrow, Osorio's announced or whatever, but I still don't think Osorio's a guy. But all this waiting,
I definitely don't either. Trust me.
but all this waiting, that's what I'm saying. But all this waiting and stuff, and then you announce Rosov or Sharundalo, a lot of fans are not going to be happy, and that's no disrespect to them. Because if you had Sharundalo Rosov coach this season, and you got to see, okay, we could probably see what he could do or this or that. But then you're going into this next season. Does Vela want to come back and play under Sharundalo? Does Vela want to come back and play for Razov? I don't know. I really don't know. You know what I'm saying? And I think that would be interesting. Look, Razov and Sharundalo can have a great year next season. We all could forget about this conversation, but at the moment right now, I think the more time that passes and no coaches is announced, I think the more questions and everything like that, and the club trying to put out these videos, I don't think that's easing the pain. It's just, look, if you're not going to put anything about a coach, probably be best not to post anything because hey, you're really playing with people, with a lot of fans that I'm talking to. Their fans literally have a countdown day. I forget how many they're like day 25, day 26 with no coach. Oh, look, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
You gotta let LAFC fans enjoy the holidays, man. They're not doing that, man. They're making
exactly that exactly that exactly. You're not gonna. It's not gonna be a good Christmas. It's not gonna, like, if they don't announce it this week, you're gonna literally gonna ruin the Christmas. Like, dang, like, it's like we still have no coach, but Merry Christmas or this or that. Like every comment that I see. So no coach news. We got a schedule without a coach and all these different. And I know people ain't gonna let it up, but yeah, I we'll see if it happens on Monday. I would hope it would happen on Monday because it's the final week.
Yeah.
People.
And I'm also interested in to see the same way that Greg Vanny did this year, where he scheduled a lot of preseason games. Like, I feel like that's something that would benefit LAFC a lot. 100%. But you think about that short window that they're going to have in between the time they sign a coach and the start of the season at the end of February, it might make it a little more difficult. But if a team like the Revs is coming back to LA, which seems to be true for preseason, and they could schedule some games against them, like, they're going to need to get as many preseason games in as possible. And I think that was, I mentioned it before, it's a very big part of the reason why the Galaxy got off to such a great start this year is because they played a lot of those preseason games. So Benny was able to tweak a lot of things and see what worked and what didn't. So for LAFC, that should be a point of emphasis. Like, get that coach in, obviously start making these roster moves as fast as they could, and then, like, get that preseason action in. Because if not, I mentioned it before, they're going to go into this year blind. And, by the time they actually start catching the stride, they could be way behind the ball. And then, we're talking about another year that they're chasing a playoff spot.
Yeah. I think that definitely would not be good. And there'll definitely be a lot of questions asked. But look, I'm going to try to stay optimistic. I'm going to tell the LAFC fans, stay optimistic, even though I know it's hard. But it's not looking good right now. But you would have hoped they would announce it by next week. Because if they don't announce it by next week, I don't think you land the nudes in between Christmas and New Year's. That would be a weird time. And then after New Year's, you're already into the new year and the transfer window and all these different things. So we'll see. I think next week would be the week. I'm not in charge of those decisions, but I think just to ease people off. But but if it's a Razov, a Sharundalo, it's not really easing anything. It's just like you wait all this time. this was the guy. You know, this was, you know, that's the thing. Matter, look, if it's a open application and they're trying to get the best coach possible, I think I don't know, huh?
Throw the names in the hat.
It looks like the names are getting slimmer and slimmer. Whether maybe the coach maybe is not as interested. I also wonder like how marketable is and how like in the MLS it's a very intriguing job, but outside MLS, how interesting is the LAFC job?
Yeah,
You know,
that's a good question, especially for candidates that are coming from different countries, right? It's valid. It's valid because we see it as obviously a good position for MLS, and the interest is there, and especially the player, the caliber of Velas around and stuff like that. But it could be a lot less intriguing than it was 4 years ago when they were looking for their first coach, and they ended up tapping by Bradley. So that's an interesting point. And the other thing is like a lot of these players are on vacation right now and they have to get back in January. So the hope is they get back to actually having a coach and like getting that going. Cause I know Chicho's been in Colombia for like the past month already.
living life. My boy is living life out
I'm
there.
about to go join him soon. So so if they come back in January with no coach, that's gonna be a hell of a problem.
Oh man, that's gonna be crazy. JP says we will be blindsided by the coach. I don't think it's anyone who we've heard of.
I agree. I honestly agree with that. I feel like a lot of the names that have been tossed around, like some were valid, some were not. But I do think that there's probably candidates that they've interviewed and have on their list that we absolutely have no clue. But the only thing I'm saying is like I feel like whoever they hire, it doesn't matter. Like I don't think fans are going to be happy one way or another. Like some fans are going to be like, "Oh, sure, this guy's good." Some fans are going to be like,
I
"Oh,
will look. Have you hired like a Jesse Marsh? I
yeah,
don't think you know what I'm
right."
saying.
There's
Then I
some
think
exceptions.
universally everybody be like, "All
Yeah,
right, it took you this
there's
time,
certain
but all
exceptions.
right." You know what I'm saying?
And I feel like
It
if
took
it's a random name that you'd be
yeah.
all right, cool. It's more so about like what it like. All right, you have the coach because the coach is really just checking off a box, but it's not like
But
you're
the
gonna get the
moves
coach
the
and be
coach
like,
does after that is what's
right. It's
important.
gonna be like, what do they do? Like, who are they bringing in? What are they gonna do? Because the coach is like, we just want a name. We just want to know that somebody's here. But then it's like, all right, we still have to do this, do that, and then see what it is. So,
That's what I'm saying. Like the sooner you do this, look,
oh, for sure.
Vanny already let go of Lleget, Jonathan Dos Santos resigned Sasha. The team across town is making moves left and right with the head coach and stuff, but LAFC is still making the decisions. But I think whoever it is, the coach may or may not like these players, and I think that's what's going to be the difficult part for LAFC because look, this is not who I want. I don't think this player is capable. I really do like this player. I do think he's capable. But yeah, we'll have to honestly, we'll just have to see how it plays out for LAFC. We're talking about it here in December 16th. We'll see what happens come February 16th or March 16th, right? Once the season's already underway.
It's only like
And
2 months away at this point to
yeah,
start the season, man.
yeah, we're literally gonna be back in the bank before you know it, for these preseason games and stuff.
I'll tell you this:
But
if it is Juan Carlos Osorio, Jesus David Murillo starting next year.
why do you say that? Why do you say that? Why do you say? Does he have a relationship?
All the
with Murillo?
Colombian bias in the world, he's gonna have any Segunda, Murillo. He's the hands
Murillo's
down. So
Look, I hope
LAFC
he
can
could
take
at
that
least
as
recognize that Murillo's not good. I don't know. Bob Bradley thought he was something, but I don't know.
they had to just give me a call. I would have helped him out, man.
Yeah, that's your boy, man. Don't be talking about your boy that way, bro. That's messed up. Don't be talking about Murillo that way.
Definitely will.
But look, I think we hit on this. Unless the chat has any questions, I think we definitely hit on everything that's been going on as of late, and we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what happens this next week. I think this may be potentially the last podcast of the year, unless something crazy happens. But yeah, man. Any last words? Anything you like to add?
Man, I think we covered everything. We did a good job at it. Like I said, Galaxy fans, take it easy on Sebastian Lleget. You're gonna miss him a lot more than you expect to, but just keep the same energy all season next year when I'm tweeting at everybody about Lleget in New England. LAFC fans, enjoy the holidays. Well, Galaxy fans, enjoy the holidays as well. But LAFC fans, try to enjoy the holidays as much as you can. Maybe Santa will bring you a gift or a few other gifts that you've been wanting. I
Head
don't
coach.
head coach of that caliber. No, but yeah, it's always exciting. I think the off seasons, they're always exciting regardless if the team is good or the team is bad because you just really don't know. It's a sense of the unknown that leads you into whatever the next season will be. So I'm excited. I'm excited that it's a short layoff because we're going to be right back to it, like you said. And I think that it's an interesting time for both LA teams. The one thing that I realized when the schedule came out was that, like, obviously, which is not it's not an unknown thing, is that MLS loves the LA teams, and they're going to be on these big market games, and they're going to be on these big channels. So they need to live up to that reputation, right? Because if they start playing like shit again, then that's gonna change really fast. And
I'm gonna be going to the games. I'm gonna just watch them from home.
All right, you already know I have something about going down all the way down to Carson. It's so far from me. So
yeah, you and your big old mansion in the hills, man. I know it must be tough coming down all the way down with us normal people.
It's so far to get from Calabasas down to Carson. Man.
my big old mansion coming down the hill. But look, all right, guys, that's gonna wrap up the show. I want to thank Andy for hopping on here. Like Andy said, man, enjoy the holidays, regardless of what situation. I know a lot of players have left, everything like that. But, try to enjoy the holidays with your family. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad, everything. Enjoy it. If you're out of town, enjoy it with your loved ones. Hopefully we're here to make these conversations try to keep you guys informed on what's going on and stuff that we're hearing and our thoughts and stuff. But no, look, I really do appreciate you guys being on the podcast. Everybody listening, just check the numbers on Spotify. They did like this rap thing or this Spotify. I forgot what it's called. I'm messing it up, but it pretty much tells you the numbers and stuff like that, and it shows the growth and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see. So everybody that's been tuning in, there's the subscribers that were up by like something crazy, like 800%, which I was like, that's wild. I feel like this is like fake news or something, but it's from Spotify. So I was like, it's been growing. So the podcast has definitely grown. I know for those that don't watch the YouTube, it's definitely grown. So I appreciate to all our listeners, everybody that listens to this, much love. And I hope you guys are great holidays and enjoy your time and get some tamales if you guys haven't got some already. Later, guys.
Happy holidays.